Hey, before we do anything else, we have to thank our sponsors, Smile Traveller, who have not only sent me to Barbados, which is very lovely, but also decked me out in this extremely fashionable cap.
Yeah, no, Smile aren't just good at making George look good, they're also specialists in worldwide sports travel. And this winter, they'll be taking England fans to the Caribbean for an exciting white ball series.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Ask George. India are T20 World Cup champions after beating South Africa in a thriller in Barbados. We are, of course, as always, joined by Chief Correspondent George Dobell. How are you, George?
Very good. Weary, but yeah, but really good, thank you.
What are your sort of overall thoughts of the World Cup now it's all done and dusted?
I really enjoyed it. I thought the best two sides reached the final and that the best side won. And I thought that South Africa were winning with 5 overs to go, as we probably all did. But the quality of that India side was, in the end, irresistible. And I think there are questions on this, but I don't think it's accurate to call it a choke. I think that's a bit disrespectful to both sides. I really do. I think that India applied a lot of pressure and South Africa struggled to deal with it. But I suspect we'll come on to that in the next few minutes, eh?
Absolutely. Keeping in the theme of the World Cup as a whole, Azam Rafiq asked, where do you rank this World Cup in terms of entertainment?
I thought it was really entertaining. I mean, I loved it, but they all are. I mean, I can't think of many that haven't been. So I don't know that I'm ranking it higher than others. I mean, you know, just the final of the last one, where Pakistan looked as if they were going to beat England and Ben Stokes played that rear guard innings and all the rest of it. I mean, maybe the weather in that tournament was compromised it a little bit. I don't know. So there are always issues, but I think it's a format that really works. I think the game is, you know, I love cricket. I nearly always enjoy it. So I do rank it very high, but I don't know that it was better than others. And we've got to be a bit careful about recency bias, but very entertaining, wasn't it? Didn't you think so?
I thought so, absolutely. I think it was interesting from a perspective of being here, you know, with the timings of certain games. I think probably quite difficult to follow if you were going to follow the whole World Cup. But whenever you know the cricket was on, it was great cricket. And also I thought bowlers being a bit more in the game was quite welcome. I think we do it every World Cup where it's been an IPL or it's been a low risk bilateral series that runs are absolutely smashed everywhere, and people get a bit overexcited about what this World Cup might mean for record breaking scores. But actually, normally at World Cups, there's more pressure. It's slightly more of a contest between bat and ball. And I thought this tournament was in New York, maybe too much the wrong way, but it was more of a contest, and the bowlers really shone.
Hey, that's a really good point. And I thought in some games, the fact that there was something in the wicket brought the other team into it a little bit more. And I'm thinking, for example, of the Oman bowlers, for example, got some stuff out of the wickets. Yeah, I agree with you about New York. The surface wasn't good enough. Trinidad semi-final surface wasn't anywhere near good enough. But you're going to get this, I guess, across a tournament. But the fact is that while it probably wasn't by design, the fact that we didn't have very many massive scores actually created some thrilling, compelling cricket. Whether it's the sort of cricket that would attract a new audience to the game, I don't know, particularly in the US. But there was a lot of drama. And yeah, those of us who were already converted, I think really enjoyed it.
Absolutely, and the final was befitting of the tournament, I suppose. The Occidental tourists asked South Africa. There was an air of inevitability about it, wasn't there? 30 needed of 30, so near and yet so far again.
I didn't think it was inevitable. I didn't. I thought South Africa were going to win it, but you always knew that Bumrah had 2 more overs. And Bumrah's 2 overs were going to be absolutely massive. And they were. He bowled magnificently, but he was supported very well by Hardik and Arshdeep, and obviously the fielders. I don't know that it did feel inevitable. I think that feels like retrofitting. 30 from 30, 6 wickets left. I think sides win that 9 times out of 10, don't they? I just worry about the scars long term. I remember a few years ago, I had a drink with Alan Donald because we lived near each other in Birmingham, and all very nice. He's a very affable fella. And foolishly, really, I brought up the '99 final, and he was clearly still really hurt by it. In fact, I may have said something about the run out, and he said it's funny. The thing is, he didn't say it with any humour. His eyes changed, suddenly the face of a shark, and he said, "Funny, no one ever asked about the 4 for 30 I took in that game." And it was clear that all these years later, the scars are still there. And they will be for the '92 side, and they will be for the, I mean, is it 7 times? They missed out in semis since then. And you wonder each time whether the barrier and the scars get more difficult to deal with. But honestly, at the time, with 5 overs to go, I was riding it up at a South Africa win, but still in the knowledge that India had some cards to play, and they played them beautifully.
It was mentioned on commentary that there was Dale Steyn had sort of found Quinton de Kock afterwards, and they were both in tears on the field. Obviously Dale Steyn being the heartbroken in 2015 when Grant Elliott hit him for 6. I think you're right that those scars don't really pass, and they got past the semi-final this time, but obviously came up short in the final, which will hurt.
It will, but I mean, to get to a final is a pretty great achievement. I mean, I don't know. They're obviously a very good side. I thought the 2 best sides were in the final. I think South Africa take a lot of pride from their performance, and they came up second best on the day against a fantastic India side. I don't know. I don't think it's all about winning, but they did look devastated. But so did Joss Butler after the England game, the semi-final. Losing hurts. You want them to care. This wasn't just another tournament, yeah. They really, really care, and that's the way you want it to be. And only one side can win. So I think even you guys tell me, people who are watching, but I suspect that even the most ardent India supporters would have a lot of respect and sympathy for South Africa right now.
The real game-changing moment was Surya Kumar Yadav's catch in the final over. One of the real game-changing moments. Christina asked, was the catch to dismiss Miller actually a 6? We have had a few questions about whether it was.
Well, no, I don't think it was. I think there was a question as well about should the boundaries be fixed, because there's a suggestion that they had, over the period of time, moved back a little bit, and you can see that there's some markings on the grass. They've maybe moved back a couple of inches. You can't have them fixed because you can't have players hurting themselves any more than is inevitable anyway. I thought it was a clean catch. I thought it was a brilliant catch. I thought it was a bit unlucky for Miller, but no, I thought it was a clean catch. I haven't seen any evidence, and I'm open-minded, but I haven't seen any evidence to suggest it wasn't a clean catch. It was a brilliant bit of athleticism. I thought even then, though, South Africa had a fair bit to do, Was it a bit unlucky? Yeah, maybe. But would he have caught it slightly differently if the boundary had been 2 inches further in? I think he probably might. I think it would be a shame if we got lost in the somewhat confected controversy of that moment. I think that would be losing sight of what we saw. I don't think it would benefit anybody. Now, if anyone's got footage of the boundary moving, then I stand corrected. I really do. But I haven't seen anything like that. I thought it was a moment of brilliance from Skayadov. And these are the margins. Top-level professional sport. They're tiny, tiny margins. But look at a 100-metre race. These things are defined by tenths of seconds. It's the cricketing equivalent. And it's painful for South Africa. But I didn't see anything untoward about it. I really, really didn't. Boundaries do move during the course of games. That doesn't I hope no one's accusing anybody of cheating or anything like that, because I didn't see a hint of that. Just as an observation as well, something that I probably should have written about, and I hadn't noticed. I think it was actually Don Topley who pointed out to me. India's support staff, they have a large support staff, stand around the boundaries every sort of 30 metres away, and they throw the ball back if it goes for four, and it saves precious seconds. And it means that India are 1 over in front going into the last over, I think. And it buys them the time in those last 4 or 5 overs to just be a bit calm. Now, that attention to detail, on top of the fact that they're an awesome side, is really, really smart. And I just wonder if that's something that other teams could look at. So they have their support staff, or they have people right the way around the boundary to throw the ball back at it. As I say, it saves vital seconds. So you don't get that panicky situation where you're making plans on the hoof and you maybe don't have a second, take a deep breath and think, right, this is what we're going to do. Tiny detail, but I just mention it in connection with the fact that sometimes it's these very, very fine margins that separate sides.
I thought the catch was perfect in terms of it was as close as you, pretty much as close as you can get to it being a six. To them being, and Raspberry Juice asks, catches win matches?
Well, they play a part. Of course they do. Good fielding wins matches. Good batting wins matches. But, it'll get overlooked. But the delivery to Hendricks at the start of the innings for Bumrah, I mean, oh my Lord. Bumrah's, I don't know if it was an outswing or it seemed or what, but it was a perfect delivery. Angled in, sort of pitches, maybe middle, hits the top of off. It's perfect bowling. So you could equally say that great bowling, terrific batting, calm heads, Virat deciding to get stuck in those early overs. Axar Patel's taking the aggression. You could say Axar Patel's slog sweep wins matches. It doesn't rhyme as well, but it would be just as true. So catches play a part in winning matches, and there were some great catches, but it's a little bit simplistic, isn't it? It's not one moment.
You mentioned Bumrah. There was quite a few questions about this. It's a question that you answered in an earlier Ask George during
so I better give the same answer. I better give the same answer, hadn't I?
Yes. Well, I'll start with Neil Varani's question, which is a bit more specific. Is it too soon to rename the stadium in Jasprit Bumrah's hometown after him?
It's a great question, because I think he's from Ahmedabad, and I think the stadium in Ahmedabad's named after Modi. So I love the idea of it named after Bumrah. Cricket grounds should be named after cricketers, yeah? Shouldn't they?
Probably.
And Bumrah is a champion cricketer. And you know what? He's got. I don't know. Hopefully, he's got 4 or 5 years. I think he's 30. He's got a few years left of him. I think there's going to be some more trophies. So I love that idea. I think it's a brilliant, mischievous question. I really, really like it.
And DJ Reeds asks, is Bumrah the GOAT?
How on earth do you compare him to Sid Barnes or Malcolm Marshall or Richard Hadley? I don't know. So we don't need to compare eras. We don't need to. It might be fun, but we don't need to, and I'm not gonna. But is he absolutely magnificent? Is he absolutely the best in his era? Yeah. And are we going to talk about it as an all-time great? Categorically, yes. And across formats. He's unique. He's skillful. He's quick. Consistent, clever, calm, humble, hardworking, gem of a cricketer.
So Lev asks, when is a choke not a choke?
Hello, Lev. Well, I think a choke suggests that it's a unilateral issue. I think if someone chokes, they have a bit of food, say, it's just them, isn't it? It's their problem. It's not caused by anybody else. And this was a strangle. India played the part of the boa constrictor. They strangled South Africa. So I say again, I genuinely think it's a bit disrespectful to both sides, because it suggests that South Africa couldn't cope with the pressure, just collapsed in a heap. And it suggests that India didn't do a lot. And India were magnificent, We talked about those Bumrah overs, we talked about the Sky Yadav catch, but all the other stuff as well. The Arshdeep overs, Hardik, a million things that created it. And absolutely, South Africa right now will be lying in bed, wondering where it all went wrong, wondering how they let it slip away. I'm sure there probably are some details, there probably are some areas that they might have done differently. I thought India were just fantastic, and I haven't seen anybody, stand to be corrected again, I haven't seen anybody take down Bumrah for any consistent period of time. That's terribly rare, yeah? I saw people, I saw Joel Garner have a bad day. I saw Wacker and Wazim. I saw Richard Hadley. All of them I saw taken apart. Even Glenn McGrath. And Shane Warne. I think Graham Wagg of Warwickshire, then Glamorgan, Derbyshire, I think he hit Shane Warne for 3 successive sixes once and 4 and an over. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, we're going back a long time, but even the best have bad days, and I don't remember Bumrah having any. Do you?
No.
I mean, so, and I can't think of many or any who could say that before. So, yeah, I just want to give India a lot more credit than suggesting that it might have just been a South African joke or anything like that. I keep saying it, don't I? But I genuinely believe that it's a magnificent side, and the floodgates are going to open now, by the way. They're going to win a lot.
Well, that's exactly the question that Crick Obsessed asked. Now that the monkey is off the back, is it time for the trophies to roll in fast with the World Test Championship and Champions Trophy upcoming next?
Well, the Champions Trophy is problematic because it's meant to be played in Pakistan. It's clearly not going to be entirely played in Pakistan, is it? India aren't going to go to Pakistan. I mean, so I presume it's going to be played in the UAE. And what happens when India reach the final? It's meant to be in Pakistan. So the Champions Trophy is problematic, but why wouldn't they be challenging in all competitions? It feels to me as if Australia and India have pulled away from the rest, and actually it's India that look the strongest. They've probably, to some extent, underachieved in the last 10 years in terms of global trophies. Obviously had lots of great moments. But I did think a year or so ago that we were coming to the end of this golden generation, Rohit, Ashwin and Virat. I think the next generation might be better. I just think it's going to go on and on. They're a fantastic cricketing nation with a huge passion for the game, huge resources, and just a wonderful level of skill. Yeah, why wouldn't they challenge in all competitions? Why wouldn't they win more often? Maybe the pressure will be a little bit easier to deal with now. Might be relevant that this wasn't played in India. The pressure on them in India was phenomenal. The desire, the need. It was incredible how the whole country was living by their every movement in the ODI World Cup. And I think that is a burden. But they've done it now. And yeah, I absolutely agree. I'd be surprised if this isn't the start of an era of Indian dominance.
Ron Martin asked, despite India being worthy winners, was this the result the ICC were desperate for?
The ICC, I don't know. The ICC are desperate for money. I mean, that's honestly, I think that's all they care about. I don't buy into the fact that India had a preferential route. I don't. They had 4 games in New York, yeah. It's a rubbish pitch. Could have been a great leveler. They also had that semi-final in Guyana. Sure, pitch suited them, fine. They'll find a lot of pitches do suit them, because they're a really good side with skills for just about all areas. So, and I think I said the other day, they did put one in Brisbane. They're really, really good. But it meant a late night flight. I think they got into Barbados just after midnight Friday morning. They're playing in the final 10:30 a.m. Saturday morning. That's not good. That's not easy. That's not helpful. In the ODI World Cup, they played their group games in 9 different cities. Loads of travel. Loads of getting used to different conditions up to a point. I don't really buy into it. Obviously there are some aspects of things. I think their accommodation was much closer to the ground in New York than some others. I thought the regs of the semi-final were, they weren't consistent in that one had a reserve day and one didn't. But I think India's team get exploited as much in the the chase of broadcast numbers as anybody else. More, maybe, probably, because they're so important to those numbers. Every other main governing body, full member governing body, has a strong say in what these competitions look like. You can't whine about it now. Is it good for world cricket? I don't know. What's good is that there was a well contested final and a fun competition. I absolutely have no time for the idea that this was fixed or anything like that. It's nonsense. We've seen fixed cricket. It sticks out. This wasn't that. This was brilliantly passionate, high-class cricket where the best side won. Were the ICC desperate for it? I don't know, because I don't know whether, if the Indian market becomes sated by success in the next decade, which it might well, whether that will create a diminishing interest. I honestly don't know. So I don't really think that, no. I don't. I think a nation, well, the biggest, most profitable nation in cricket was desperate for this result. But whether the whole ICC were, no. I think they just wanted really well contested games.
Crick Obsessed asked, how would you rank all the ICC events in terms of significance?
No, I have no idea. But of the men's and women's events, I mean, is the question really, is the T20 more significant now than the ODI? Don't know. I think the ODI World Cup still brings in more money. At least it did a couple of years ago. Whether it will in the next broadcast deal, I don't know. The World Test Championship in the men's game, I think, would be bottom of those three, with the Champions Trophy below that. I don't think the World Test Championship's particularly working. But the ODI World Cup and the T20 World Cup, I don't know. I mean, from my perspective, the T20 World Cup's probably the most fun. ODI cricket, as a journalist, ODI cricket's a long old day, I can tell you. But whether it keeps eyeballs the whole day, I think the figures suggest it doesn't. So maybe the T20 tournament is becoming the biggest in both men's and women's cricket. That's neither good nor bad, and I might even be wrong, but it's an observation. I don't know. Do you ever thought?
Yeah, I think it probably makes more sense just because of that whole day thing, that ODIs actually become longer than test match days, really, because you're playing more overs. It becomes a bit of a slog, and it when you're trying to attract new fans and you say, okay, we're going to sit you down here at 11 a.m. and you're not going to be done until late in the evening, that's going to be a struggle for some people to get their head around. Whereas new fans will see 4-hour game. If some games are much longer than that, having covered quite a few of them this tournament, but that will be much easier sell, I think, as it always has been, really. So
I think that's probably true, but I didn't want to be down on ODI cricket there, because I still think a really good ODI is as thrilling as anything you'll see in the sport. So I love it all. So I'm probably the wrong person to ask. Literally the other day, I can't remember what the game was, but after a game I went and I watched Warwickshire play Northants online in my hotel room. I went for a drive the other day and watched club cricket in Barbados. I'm a geek, so I don't know. I like it all, but for what it's worth, I'd bring in promotion and relegation in Test cricket. I'd have a bit more peril. I don't think the World Test Championship works at all for lots of reasons.
I think that the one thing also might be that the World Cups are slightly too often. I think people might be getting a bit fed up of having a World Cup almost every year, as much as we've
had a freak run of it, Oscar. We have had a bit of a freak run of it because of COVID and all the rest of it. I mean, I bloody love it.
Yeah,
I don't quite get it. I mean, you get an IPL every year, you get a blast every year. What's the matter with having a World Cup it's every 2 years, really, once the schedule returns to normal? I don't know. Well, I'm going to wake up tomorrow and wonder what the hell to do with my day. So, I love it.
In terms of that, Lord Lupin asked, when is the next World Cup?
It's the start of 2026, and it's in India and Sri Lanka. So I think it's February, March. The next T20 World Cup is February, March. Yeah, Sri Lanka, India. And the next ODI World Cup is the end of 27, well, October, November, I think, in South Africa, Namibia, Zimbabwe. So it seems quite a long way off to me. No,
Yeah.
that too far. And there's a Champions Trophy at the start of next year in supposedly Pakistan. Good luck with that. I mean, I'm sure England will play in Pakistan, but India aren't going to Pakistan. Anyone who thinks they are, it's not going to happen.
Well, that's something to look forward to. Thank you very much, George, for
well done,
answering
Oscar.
questions.
Yeah, thanks everyone for sending them. It's been a huge amount of fun. I feel terribly fortunate to have been sent to the Caribbean to watch cricket as ever. Thank you to Smile, but most of all, thank you to all the people who have sent in questions. Really appreciate it. Enjoyed it.
Thanks a lot.